Yeah, now let's move to another assassination. This one where we know who did it finally, and legally it's been established. It was David Castillo. Now, who was David Castillo and who did he murder? Berta Caceres was murdered in 2016 in Honduras. She was one of the leading Honduran environmental activists. She was the leader of the Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations, which just the sound of that sounds great. That sounds like a great council. Popular and Indigenous Organizations, sign me up. So she was a threat to DESA, an energy corporation that was that wanted to put a big dam in the Aqua Zarca Dam project, which would have occupied Lenca land, the indigenous folks that Caceres is a member of. There's this great article in The Intercept on this, the system that killed Berta Caceres, and I want to play a little bit about that. Just like she was opposing this dam project, which would have flooded a lot of their land, and she was killed for it, right? Which would remind people, I'm sure it's not just the Upper Missouri Valley, but it's the one I know of because I'm from North Dakota, of Pick Sloan, which was a Missouri River damming project, which put up a whole bunch of dams along the Missouri River, all of which basically flooded native land. There's a town in North Dakota called Newtown, and the reason they had to make a new town was because of that flooding. So this is a very, when we talk about hydro, which is going to become more and more popular because it basically serves as a battery for energy, retaining these water, and battery technology is difficult to master. See lithium. It's not just moving away from lithium and hard earth minerals. Like dams are massively problematic too, as this case and our history has shown. But not to get too off a field there. Here's a little bit from this Intercept piece, and I wanted to share a few sections of it here. Give me 1 second. 1:30 here. Okay, here we are. Again, I highly recommend this entire...
Berta Caceres sparked international condemnation.
And do we know who killed her or why?
It wasn't hard to guess the kind of broad reasons why somebody in Honduras would want to have Berta Caceres killed. Her activism often created problems for business interests and for members of the ruling class.
Caceres complained of death threats from police and the army in the past. Her daughter says her mother was killed because she refused to exploit natural resources at the expense of Native people.
In the final years of her life, she was fighting an effort to construct a dam on the Gualcarque River by a company called Desarrollos Energéticos Sociedad Anónima, or DESA. That's the company you just mentioned a moment ago.
The dam had wealthy international investors, and the government was determined to push ahead.
And they wanted to construct a dam over this river where the Lenca people have a lot of territories and use the water.
It would have cut off the water supply to the Lenca community and the land they live off.
So for background on this case, in 2005, there was a presidential election in Honduras. The winner was a businessman named Manuel Zelaya, sometimes known by his nickname Mel.
Gana Honduras, ganas tú.
Zelaya was elected on a liberal platform, but moved to the left during his presidency. While he was president, he prioritized Honduras's agricultural production to reduce reliance on imports and joined a Venezuelan-led regional trade group called the Bolivarian Alternative for the Americas. And most crucially, he sought this constitutional change, which would have facilitated the redistribution of wealth from the hands of 10 ruling families who...
Just to zoom up a little bit forward, basically, he was couped. The Obama and Hillary Clinton both personally described it as a coup, but the State Department somehow never got around to acting on it as if it was a coup and doing anything about it. Do you have anything you want to say there, Dave, before we move on a little bit here? There's another clip here. We didn't quite get to it, but where after this happened, Honduras is open for business was their big slogan. I also want to put it two things. So David Castillo was the president and CEO of DESA, the company that was putting this dam in. And I want to share this quick. We got some celebratory, some more fun here, or happiness, I guess I shouldn't say fun. Coming up from the very best. Okay. Sorry, that audio is not great. But so David Castillo is found guilty of assassination for ordering this hit on this activist. And the one thing that I believe the daughter of Berta has said that she wants to stress is that this is amazing. This is a great, bit of justice. This can't just be a one-off, because there's activists under threat all the time in Honduras in the exact same way. So this is great, and this needs to be to set a sort of pattern recognition for folks about what's happening. Not that, oh, thank God, now everything's sorted out.
Yeah, I think that is such an important statement, and obviously, I mean, this is justice that has been delayed, for a very long time, and I think it's incredible to finally get the person who's calling out the hit in trouble. But remember, these are long form conspiracies behind these kind of actions. And what I want to note here is that, a lot of people use this story in the 2016 election to remind people of how corrupt and evil Hillary Clinton is. And I think that that's certainly correct. But this is one of those moments where you can get so fixated on the personal, on the individual, and you miss the structural things here, right? This is not forgiving Hillary Clinton by any stretch of the imagination. But what I want to remind people of is that Clinton's role, right, in this coup against Zelaya, should remind people that it's not just like leftism or like socialism that is a direct threat to American empire. It's like basic developmental statism, right? Like in the sense of like, oh, I want to develop my economy in a way that benefits the people in my society, most notably the working people, and not the people at the very top of my society, and multinational, international corporations, right? That kind of politics, so even if it's just liberal, right, not even anti-capitalist, is a direct threat to American hegemony and imperialism. And Hillary Clinton made a choice in her life to be a foot soldier for that system, right? And we should judge her for that forever. But remember that these things are very, very, they're much larger than just personal egos and, this kind of thing. Some people have more fervor and passion for evil and wickedness than others. But there's a reason that Hillary Clinton was making these kind of decisions that led to more devastation in Honduras, and unfortunately, to the murder of Berta.
Let's. I also want to play just a little bit more from this, because I love that they got these call logs, and I think they're pretty illuminating as far as the mindset of the people who order assassinations of activists.
Who would later be charged and sentenced with the murder of Berta Caceres. That call log wasn't only looked at by us. It was first examined during public prosecutor's office in their trying of the hitman who would later be charged and sentenced with the murder of Berta Caceres. That call log wasn't only looked at by us. It was first examined by an independent expert, and it showed, and her analysis of those chats showed, that the assassins had communicated through a compartmentalized chain that reached the highest ranks of leadership of the company. And so we looked at those messages to show how they demonstrated a plot to kill Caceres. And they also demonstrated DESA's involvement in other unethical activities, like bribing journalists covering the story, spying on activists and diplomatic meetings, and keeping tabs on Berta's location. And so we can see that on July 15th, 2013. So that very day, one of the leaders, Atala Midens, sent a message to Castillo, who at the time was the president of DESA. And he texted him in Spanish the military killed an Indio. And he said, it looks like another of them is dead. In response to that, Castillo said, pay the reporter from HCH, which is a Honduran news station. And he said how much they would pay him. He went as far as that. He said 1,000 lempiras for last week. And right now we can give him another 1,000. So that amounts to about $100. And we know that when that television program ran the story, the broadcast was slanted in Dessa's favor. They mentioned that the child of someone working on the dam had been killed and indicated that members of Copin were responsible. However, that has been widely disputed. And
right. So, I mean, it's just fascinating how that works, right? Just to say, like the things you suspect, but just, in Indio, as they say, the anti-indigenous, just racism, white supremacy. Another $100 to get this journalist to cover for us.